Today I'll be starting off with C programming. Okay, the next part. I just want to have one thing is that do any of you have any doubts on previous class? If anybody of you have got any doubts from your previous class, we can start discussing right now only. Previous class, any discussion, any problems?
Sir, can you please
Yes,
briefly explain the last flowchart that you made? If you can give just a brief explanation once again, because that was a little confusing, sir.
okay, ma'am. Let's see what I have got it. So I just start presenting now. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
I'll just get into the fact that what was our main pseudocode or main algorithm which we had. So let's see. So this was the flowchart which you had, right? So if I actually have a look at the Vance program, this thing for you. Okay, so I had some inputs. I started off with some inputs, right? So that was x is equal to x1 to x100. Now this is my this box which you see, this trapezoidal parallelogram box which you see. These boxes are actually used also for inputs and for outputs. Both of them they are used for these stuffs. Okay, so I'm taking in some inputs from here. Using this x1 x2, so I'll assume that I'm going to take one at a time, x1 and x2 x3. So instead of giving all these 100 boxes like these parallelogram boxes, what I've just done is basically I've just given it in only one parallelogram box. Okay, after that, what did my algorithm actually say? My algorithm actually said that initially I am going to take some 9 variables. What was my objective? I have got 100 numbers. Each number lies between 0 to 9. Okay, my objective was to find the frequency of all the numbers which I have, of all the 0 to 9, all the frequencies of this. So for doing a frequency count, so I require to basically count. So initially you can think of it basically putting it in a bucket, as somebody had mentioned last day. So these buckets you can actually say to be as f0 to f9, right? So initially what my buckets will be, so they will be basically containing nothing, so it will be 0. So that was what my second step said. So these boxes which you actually see, these square boxes which you actually see, these are what we say to be as processing or auxiliary operation boxes, which you can see if I have actually put it on the, I just highlighted this part, the boxes. So these are actually operations. These are operations. So f0 to f9 will be f9 will be 0. After that, what I have done, I have to start a loop. Then the objective is basically to check for each number where my xi, I want to find out whether xi lies between 0 to 9, 0 or a 9, but 0 to 9, either any one of them. Okay, so what I could have done is basically I could have checked each number first, but that thing also I'm actually keeping it in a loop. So I'm stating that for I is equal to 0 to 100, so I will be working as an index to my these numbers, so x1 x2 to x100, and then I will check whether xi will be a 0, will be equivalent to a 0 or a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 9, 2 9, right? So this 0 to value, these, see, you can see, you can notice that these values are basically this action is repeating. This action is repeating with a certain number to be checked. So this number, if I actually can vary it, if I can use a variable, and if I can start replacing that variable with these numbers of 0 to 9, then I can easily have a check that if xi equivalent to j. So what will happen over here? So for the first case, if you actually see, for I is equal to, for this is what we say from 11 to 15 and all these things, what we say needs to be as a dry run for a certain given algorithm. So I'm going to replace my values, replace my variables with the specific values, and I'll actually do it in a step by step. I'll do it in a step by step. Okay. So this for I is equal to 1 and for j is equal to 0. So my next step, what will be? J will start from 0. Right. For my initial first line, I has been initialized to be 1. The variable I has been initialized with 1. My next step will be j to 0 to 9. So my next step, the variable j has been initialized to 0. Now I check whether xi, so what will be xi? So x1, because I is 1 at this time, so it will be x1. So x1 equivalent to j. What is the value of j right now? J is actually 0. So this statement I can actually state that if xi, that is x1, equivalent to j, that is where j is equal to 0, if it is true, if this value is true, then fj, what is fj? That is again by index value. So fj, that is f0, will be f0 plus 1. Right. So this is just what I have done over here. If you actually see, for this loop, in this loop, I'm starting from this I is equal to 1 to 100. Step 1. The step means the number of, it will be incremented. What is the increment of I? So it will increment by 1. I can even increment by 2. I can even increment by 3. It is as I require. So over here, I want to check all my numbers. So all my numbers will be rising from x1 to x100. So x1, x2, x3, x4, x1. So my I value is being incremented by 1. So that is why I is equal to 1 to 100. That will be a step 1. Then my next step will be this one, for j is equal to 0 to 9. So this is my next one. Right. Now, after that, I want to check if xi is equal to 0, then fj. So this one, because there is no space over here, I'm going to give a connector over here. These are connectors. These connectors, because let's take for example, in a page, you are actually going to draw it in a page. So in a page, if you cannot see it, that what will be the, if it doesn't fit. So if you have to go to the next page, so there should be a continuation. These continuations will be marked by these connectors. So one will be a connector from here. It starts from again here, right? So I will not be giving an arrow something like here to here. No, that is not allowed. So I don't have an arrow to from here to here. Nor if your flowchart actually converts to your second page also. If your flowchart converts to a second page also. So in the second page, you cannot actually basically turn your arrow. So you require some connector. So these are my connectors which we'll be working with. So my this one and this one, it means that this arrow is being continued from over here. Now I would have to check that if what I've done is if xi is equal to j, then fj is equal to fj plus 1. Now this is a decision box. A decision box will have a minimum of two things. One, it will have a yes, or it will have a no. Else it can have one no, multiple yeses. It can have one yes, multiple yeses, a single no. So I am taking the basic one where I have only one decision to take. That is whether it is a yes or a no. So it will be not if, rather. So I'm taking a decision. Is xi equivalent to j? If it is a yes, then I do my next processing. That is fj is equal to fj plus 1. If it is false, for a decision box, you must have a yes or a no. So it is not only a yes. So for a no, when you actually have a, yes.
Sir, please once more, please explain about I and J.
The I and a J. So the I will be basically working as an is equal to A, J is, let's say for example, A is a summation of AI, where I lands from 0 to 100, right? Have you seen all those similar, all these things? So you have something like A is equal to summation. So this will be a sigma symbol, right? Summation from A, then summation of say BI, right? Where you have basically something like uh, I is equal to say 0 to 100. If in your basically integration systems, if you see an integration system or your summation systems, if you actually see it, do you remember that part? You had those simple symbols about basically xi to xj. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that is what actually, those are my indexes. You can think of those things as my indexes. That is what I'm doing over here. That is my what is meant. So whenever my I will be there, so it will be replaced with this xi will be basically this value. So this xi will be this value. So xi means when i's will be starting from 1, so it will be 1 x1 equivalent to j, that is j. What is the value of j present for the first step? J will be basically 0. So these are working like something like indices or indexes, right? And they will be working like indices. As you, these indices as similar to, uh, let's take for example in your for your this thing for your summation and your multiplication also. It's the same thing. That is the same thing. The concept remains the same. The concept remains the same. The concept remains the same.
Understood, sir.
So this is a decision which I'm going to take. That is xi is, if is xi is equal to j. So that is in for my first step. Is x1 equivalent to 0? If it's yes, then f0 will be f0 plus 1, because this is the j's index. J is index over here. So fj is equal to fj plus 1. And if it, since it has to be it has to have a no also. So if it is a no, then I actually do not do this increment. So I just go to my next this part. I cannot go to my next box. So I can actually basically, it's something like an electrical connections. I can connect it with wires. I cannot connect it directly to my instruments, right? So if I have got a connector, I can be, these are connections between wires, right? So I can connect this thing to be to this flow line. So this flow line is being connected over here. So if you give something like this, if you give something like this is wrong. This is wrong. The reason is that it means that there is something parallel which is going on here, but this is not parallel. This is not parallel. It is just, this is a process which is continued from here to here. So I am going to connect it with my process lines, to my my connector lines, these connector lines. So the wire is coming from here to here, it's been connected, and I go to my next G. So my next J, what will happen, since it is a step, so this one next J will be, this is connected to 2. So this is my 2 and this is my 2. So this is my outgoing arrow with a 2, and it's my 2 and with an incoming arrow, right? So with this 2, now what will happen, there is a step 1. So my J will be incremented with a 1. So my J will become 1 right now. Now my I hasn't incremented. So my next step will be again through this 1. Now it will come to, is x1 equivalent to 2? Because I has not been incremented. So I will remain as 1. And then j has been incremented to 1. So my question is that, is x1 equivalent to 1? If it is a yes, then f1 will be equal to f1 plus 1. And if it's a no, then you would go ahead with the next step. So how much this long will actually go? Till my j is not equal to 9. When my j becomes It will work till 9, and when it goes beyond 9, that is when the step it becomes when it becomes 10, then a decision will be taken within this xj and this thing. One can actually say is that, okay, if this is a j, if j is my 10, then please go to my next level. That is then it goes to next j. Then it goes to next j. Okay, any question here? One can even think it's something like this, is that, let's take for example, say this thing I just repeated. So let's take for example, I remove these steps. Okay, let's do this whole thing in a different style. So I have a counter now. Now I'll start with another counter, that is j is equal to 0. Right now, I remove this part. So j is equal to 0. Then I come over here. So I do this thing. See, my for loop will be working in the same way, but I'll just change my logic in a different way. So I'll take a decision now. So I'll take a decision now. Is j equivalent to 10? So if my j is equivalent to 10, then I'll have to go to my next I, right? So if it is a yes, if it is a yes, then I go to my next I. So this works like this. This will not become a problem. But if it is a no, then where do I go? Then I go to so this one ing.
Excuse me, sir. Sir,
Yes.
sir, sir, this prov line creating some problems, sir. Can you please explain me once more this prov line you have given
Which
here
one?
is yes, sir. Go to the screen that, sir.
Just one second. Let's see. Which one?
Yes, sir. This one is xi equals to equivalent to j,
Okay.
where you have arrow, prov line. This prov line creating some problems, sir. Can you explain me
This
once
one
more?
is
Yes,
you're
this
talking
one.
about this one.
No, bottom, sir. Bottom at bottom.
This one.
Yes, sir. This one.
I'm asking you a question. Uh, this is x1 equivalent to equivalent to basically x. So what my first one value will what to be? This is, I will be basically 1 and j is equal to 0, right? So my question one now you write my because my the value of these indices I has been replaced with 1 and my j has been replaced with 0, right? So now my question one will be, is x1 equivalent to 0? So your answer will be either yes or a no. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, this one I can't understand this one. This one actually, sir, it's I equals to, if you are telling sir I equals to 1, then they become 0.
No. This is not an equal to sign. This is an equivalent sign. This is an equivalent sign. This is not equal to. This is not assignment. I'm checking. I'm checking.
Okay, sir.
This is from algebra. If you remember, this is that is a equivalent to so these two things are equivalent, right? So if you see that equivalent, so a1 is an equivalent to a b. A is equivalent to b. What does it mean? It means the value which has been assigned to a, it's checking with the same value which is it. It's checking with the value whether of the assigned to b. So this is not assignment. It is just basically it's checking. It's a check. Two equal to signs. It is mean basically it's been equivalence. Now there is another symbol of working with equivalent. If you I do not know. Let's see. I'll just give you an example. So this is your equivalence. You can see there are 3 lines, right? You can see there are 3 lines.
Yes, sir.
Now, unfortunately, I do not have these have this 3 lines over here. So what I am doing is basically instead of the 3 lines, I am actually putting equal to equal to. This is what I am doing.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, so instead of this, in place of this this symbol, these 3 symbols, or even of this equal by definition, that is the 2 symbols with the triangulation, what I am doing is basically I am actually using this double equal to. This means the same. This means the same.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so now see what I have done is basically I have actually changed this for loop inside for the j toward that if then else conditions. What is actually happening then? So my first value is j is equal to 0, it goes to 1. So xi is equal to becomes x, so my xi will be x1 equivalent to 0 because my j is equal to 0. If yes, then whatever something happens, then what? Then j is basically I'm basically counting to j is I'm incrementing by 1. So if you remember in my this part, you see that what I had done is j is basically incrementing by 1, step 1. There's the same thing which I'm doing over here. So j is equal to 1. Then what I'm doing is that I'm again asking the question. I'm again asking the question, is j equivalent to 10? Is j equivalent to 10? You can even write it something like this also. Is j greater than equal to 10? Right, or you can even say something like this, greater than 9. Right, so when if j is j greater than 9, if it's a yes, then I go to my next type. If it is a no, then see where I'm actually going back. I'm going back over here. I'm going back over here. So right now what will happen is that my I has not basically increased. My I has not increased, but my j has increased over here. So right now it will become x1 equivalent to 1. I go on. So my for loop, you can see this for loop which is done over here. I can also convert this for loop with the if then else condition. with the help of a counter. This j will be basically referred to, you can say this to be as a counter. So this is an alternative of using a for loop. Okay, and so I go to the next I, and then as my algorithm said, till 100, and then I give a f0 to f9. That is what I've done. Okay, any question here? Any question here? Hello, is there any question?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir. No, sir, I think.
So
No, sir.
can we continue? So can we continue? You will
Yes,
see
yes.
that in your drive, I have shared this thing. What do you say? A certain lecture. Where do you see that? There's a stream. So if you go to your drive, many of you have not. Please note these of your friends. Somebody like with the Oshit Padui 2003, he has not basically accepted it. Rajiv Chatterjee, he has not accepted it. Then Debargo 1701 has not accepted it. And over here, Shabi Khatun has not accepted it. Joydev has not accepted. Please tell them that classes have already started. Accept
Okay.
and tell to actually join the classes. So let's say,
Sir,
yes.
I am Rajiv Chatterjee. I am already in the class, but I haven't received that mail which you had sent earlier.
Rajiv Chatterjee, कौन mail तो?
Sir, Chatterjee Rajiv 7601 @gmail.com.
This one.
Yes, sir.
Sir, my name is also not showing, sir.
Okay, let's check this part today. Uh, let's say this thing. Okay, I'll take up one by one. So let's solve this problem today. This Rajiv, this thing has not been. You have not got your invitation, right?
Yes, sir.
So let's say I'm going to add you again. So I'll just delete this thing. This is your email,
Sir.
Rajiv.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'll just get again. Who has not again got an invitation?
Me, sir. Ali.
Ali, can you please write your this thing in your chat?
Yes, sir.
Your email address.
Sir,
Huh?
sir, I have got the invitation, but not on my account. It was actually sent to my father's account.
বাবু তুমি আমাকে যে আমাকে algorithm তুমি আমাকে the mail which has been given to by a CR, that is the one which I have basically added. So if it is the wrong ID, tell me, I'll do the checking right now only.
So 1 minute, sir.
Sir, shall I have to give my email ID, sir?
Ali, give me your email ID right now. I'll add it right now only. And Avrojit, give your email ID also.
Sir, please check. I have given.
Okay.
Yes, sir. This one.
Okay, this one. Okay. Anybody else?
Sir, I have also received it with my father's account.
the mail which was given by a CR or which you had actually given it during your admission, that was
Yes.
the one which is being basically given. Okay.
Okay.
So if you are not right, please tell me. So
Yes, sir. I have also given.
Anubhav, uh,
Yes, sir.
okay.
I also received the mail in my father's account.
কেন তোমাদের চাওয়া তো হয়েছিল যে তোমাদের নিজেদের, বাবাদের কেন দিয়েছো আমি তো এখন মাথায় ঢুকছে না। Shubhajit, this is basically your, this is a capital S. Jyotirmoy, hello, Jyotirmoy Mondol. This is already done. Is it all right, everybody? I'll just send an invite. Can you tell me that who has not? Can you tell me the mails which are defunct mails? I believe there is a specific one. What are the defunct mails? Whose father's mails which was given to you? Rajiv Chatterjee?
Sir, it is, sir, the mail is mine.
That is your mail.
Yes.
Ashit Padui? Anybody who has given their right email right now, please tell me what their wrong email was, so I can delete those mails right now. Hello. Meghnapal, you are already added, I believe so. Meghna.
Sir, the list which you are checking right now, sir, in which I don't see my name, sir.
Okay. Okay. One thing is that to your CR, send the wrong email which was given by you. Okay.
Yes, sir. My email is
Sir.
correct, sir. I have given my correct email ID.
But then you should be getting it.
Sir.
Yes.
So while joining the classroom, I have used my account, but the emails from your account keep coming into my father's account.
Because I have taken it from an Excel sheet which was given by the university to me. At that time of admission, when you had given, you might have given your father's email.
Sir, I have also have the same problem.
So what you do is basically right now do
আরে
one thing.
স্যার ইজ সেইং তো যে ওখানে তোমরা ভুল ইমেল দিছো কেন এক কথা বারবার বলে যাচ্ছ ডুড কি
তোরা যেটা করবি তোদের একটা কাজ কর তোদের সিআর এর কাছে তোদের যে ভুল ইমেলটা যেটা দিয়েছিলি সেটা দিবি আর যেটাতে কারেক্ট ইমেলটা আছে সেটা আমাকে পাঠা এখন এরকম ভাবে করলে ক্লাস নষ্ট হবে সময় যাবে তোরা সিআর কে এটা পাঠিয়ে দিবে সিআর কুশল প্লিজ আমাকে একটু হেল্প করে দে এটাতে
ঠিক আছে স্যার
ঠিক আছে মানে যারা ভুল দিয়েছে ভুলটা কি ছিল সেটাও যেন দেয় আর ঠিকটা কি সেটা যেন দেয় ঠিক আছে
স্যার আপনি এখন ক্লাস নিন ওটা ক্লাসের শেষে আমি ওদের কাছ থেকে নিয়ে নেব
ঠিক আছে ওকে চল ফাইন okay so yesterday's class we can basically stop right now anybody has any questions about the last day's class
নো স্যার
okay So what I'll do is basically I'll make some PDFs out of these things and I'll send it to you. Second thing is that in your folder, if the folder which you have actually been shared, if the folders which you actually see, they also have got a file of these things of the what do you say? You will see these this basics of your what we have done is the flowchart algorithms. The spelling is wrong. I'll check it and give it to you. And the pseudocodes, a little bit of notes has been given to you. You can actually study that. You can actually have a look because these are very basic things. Okay, although the algorithms is not basic part. Because in the later on in the future also you will be writing algorithms is very necessary. So there is some flowcharts over here also with some examples of a pseudocode. Pseudocode, I have not basically done it, but pseudocode is almost similar to of basically of working with algorithms also. But then you can do some extra things that is you can give these operations. That is a plus minus. You can also write these statements also, read write. So that becomes a little bit. So over there you can even give a loops also for I is equal to 1 to 10. That looks almost like a coding type, because when I'm getting into coding, you'll see that something looks funny, that your code which can be written when you write it in very simple English, that becomes what we say to be as a pseudocode. Okay, so when somebody asks you to there is a very basic misnomer is that pseudocode can be passed off as algorithms. Truthfully, no, you cannot. One cannot pass a pseudocode like a algorithm. A pseudocode is totally different. Pseudocode is a simple English language format of the code which you have written, while your algorithm is an abstract thought process of what you want to do step by step. That is what is an algorithm is all about. Okay, so when somebody asks you to give an algorithm, don't give a pseudocode, because a pseudocode will be wrong when one for an algorithm. When is one asked is for a pseudocode, then give the pseudocode. The pseudocode is basically, again, as I was saying, a simple English language format of your programming which you're going to do. Okay, the programs which we are going to work with, that is the program which I'm going to work with is C programming, and the environment which I'll be using is GCC. Right. I do not know about has your lab started, by the way?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Now, GCC environment is typically built given in a Linux environment. So this is basically what you see. This is the Linux environment. You can, if you actually see, if you actually can go to my help, you will see that. So if you see that this is my this thing. This is what I am using. That is the Ubuntu 18.04.5 LTS. Otherwise, there are many Linux versions also. Something like what do you say, the Mint, Fedora. Then there are many others. So this is what we did, Debian version, and my Genome version is basically the desktop UI of Ubuntu is which is used. And this is basically what about, so these Linux versions, these things, they have got inbuilt compilers what we know as GCC. Okay, now GCC by default it does not come. By default when you install Linux, it is all right, it works out. But then for your Windows version, the open source GCC is again open source. So the GCC for, if you actually give GCC for Windows, you will see that something comes about. But then unfortunately, if you want, you can actually install these. You can install these from. So this is the Sigwin project which is there. The Sigwin project is the most popular one rather than MinGeo. So you can use either one of these two projects where you can write, where they will give you an interface or a terminal, something like this, a terminal where you can write your programs. Or you can write your programs through a simple notepad also. I'm not advising somebody to use a GUI right now. Still, again, if you are not interested in basically installing this GCC, that is a Mint UI, you can actually also go through some online compilers which you have. So I'm telling for students who do not have machines right now, but can work with basically tabs or mobiles. So these are some online codes which is there. This is the GitHub formation. That is a GitHub. This is how this gives you some online C compilers. So I have chosen one. This one is the one which you can actually work your programs over here, right? So you can sign in and sign out and do all those stuffs over here. But that is for but it's given in your chat also. I have written all these things in your chats also. So you can work on this thing, but I will be working on my GCC compiler with in my own machine. So the first, we start off with the programming, something like very simple programs we'll start off with. Please note one thing is that most of you have got most of you have got experiences with programming, but the programming which most of you, that if you come from C++, I'm talking of students who are coming from C++. Please note the C++ standards are not correct for your C programs. Okay, some of your constructs remains the same, but then most of the constructs will not be the same. So if you are started with C programming, that is I'll tell that you are at an advantage. So that is how I'm going to start off with. Okay, so I'll use a simple notepad. That is my this thing. Any program, they are actually looks like a functions. Okay, so I'll take up the simple first program that is printing something on the screen. Okay, so the first program which we are going to write is something like this. Okay, so this is your first program. Let's see what your program actually says. As I was saying, everything is a function. Okay, now a set of commands, you can give a set of commands, but your system must know where your program must start. Now, as in a function, where a function can call many other functions, so I can have something like this. Y is equal to if gx comma h. So can one have a function something? One have a function like this, right? So let's say I have got these two functions, gx and hz. These two functions are given in the beginning, and the function which is being called, which calls gx and hz, that is f. So the output, your function, if you have got many functions, there will be at least one function which calls one or two functions of these of all given functions. So for a C program, your main function is basically this one, main. So the formats of main can be something like this, main.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
I think in the fifth line there should be double quotes in both sides of hello world. I think.
Okay, let's say even if I do not give it, let's say I don't give it. Let's see what happens.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Let's see what happens. Okay, so now all functions takes in some parameters. So let's say for the g takes in a parameter of gx, h takes in a parameter of this. So let's take for example, if one can also write like this, y is equal to if a comma b, where a is equal to gx and b is equal to etc. Right? One can write f as fab, or one can write f of gx and h of z. Both are synonymous. Both are the same thing, right? The first line, what I have done is something like this. I can write something like this. If this thing can be done something like this. One can do something like this. Is there anything wrong over here? From 9 to 12. So 9 to 11 is the same thing as what 12 basically states. So the difference is that, yes?
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Sir, there is a number 1 to 15. Sir, what's the meaning of these serial numbers?
No. Just hold us. Just hold us. Your program basically lies from between 1 to 7. Okay. Now this is something different which I'm trying to explain. 12 to 13 is something different I'm trying to explain. So this has got nothing to do with programs. So let's take, for example, if I do something like this. Okay. Now is it all right? Now is it all right? Any question here? So these two stuffs are totally different. So I can have something like a is equal to gx, b is equal to hz, and y is equal to f comma b. This is similar to basically writing is equal to f of gx comma hz. Now what was this? Is a line number 5 has been rewritten with combining line number 1 to 3. So all functions takes in some parameters. So f takes in some parameters a and a b. So when I'm writing this line number 5, it is being assumed that a takes in the value of gx and b takes in the value of hz and then replaces them, and then it basically runs. Your function f works. Right? So it takes in some parameters. So similarly, you see that main is a function, this takes in some parameter, and since all functions return something, it should return a value, right? So h returns a value of a b, g returns a value of a, and f returns a value of y. So similarly, main function, this also returns something. Printf, this is again a function. Its job is to print something on the screen. Right? How printf works, that we'll get into later on. Okay, so printf is a function, and your return, it states that this function, main function, is returning something. So similar over here, like hz, the value of z, the value of the function x returns something which is being assigned to the value of b. Since I'm not seeing the these things, if you have got any questions, I'm not seeing your these chats. If you have got any questions, you can interrupt me at the beginning only. Okay, so somebody asked what was that? Which is the better for coding? Debian based distros are both the same. Both the
Sir,
same. Yes.
sir, I had a question regarding this.
Yes.
Sir, y is assigned the value of the function that is f of gx and hz, but should we be assigning the value of gx to a, or a should be equivalent to gx? Like we are kind of like putting a in place of gx. So shouldn't there be two equivalent signs, because we are just replacing one with the other? So should we be assigning the value, or should the value should be equal to each other?
I'm assigning the value over here.
Okay, sir.
The line number 5 is equivalent to the line numbers 1 to 3. They're the same thing. They're the same thing. It's only that line number 5 I have expanded it in the form of to line number 1 to 3.
Okay, sir.
Okay, the same thing. Both means the same. Both means the same.
Sir, could you please explain the line that return exit success, that line, sir?
I'll not come to that. I'll come to that later on. Till now, any questions is raised? Till what I've said.
So can you explain again the function of main, means how it is determined?
Which one?
The function of main.
I've not come to that as yet. I've not come to that as yet.
Okay, sir.
I'm not come to that. Okay. Till here in this file over here, any questions till here? Okay.
No, sir.
No, sir. So let's come back to over here. So main takes in basically a value, right? That it takes in a value right now. But what these keywords mean, I'm going to tell you later on. I'm going to come later on. Okay. Now, since your function returns something over here, so your function is returning something. So for a in C, what we do is that if I have given a function, so if I want to write this function over here for my C in a C program, what I'll be doing is something like this. So I'll assume my A to be an integer value. So these things as well. So there are types of values you can actually return. So I'll assume my G function to be returning an integer value. Okay. So what I'll write is basically int G. Now I'll assume again, please note that I'm again assuming something. Okay. So again, I'm going to assume my G, this X value, to be an integer also. So this one will be int X. What is an int? It states that the date. Now all my these things, all my you have got programs, so you'll be working with datas. Okay. Now your datas can be of different types. It can be of integer types. It can be of real. It can be real numbers. It can be positive. It can be negative. It can be. It can be values which can have a certain range. It can be have some values which have longer range. Even you can have characters also. So these are these what we say to be variables or values. These what we say they are having some specific data types. So what are these data types? These data types, the basic data types I'll be seeing, that's int, float. Float is for real numbers, right? This is for integers, and I have got char. This is for characters. So let's say that these are the basic things which we know. Right. So these are what we say to be as data types. These are what we say to be as data types. Okay. Now, I'm stating that my G takes an integer and it returns an integer. So parallelly, analogously, if I can say, my main takes in something and returns an integer. Right. So what does it return? It returns something like I say, let's take for example, if I say this is return x 0. So it returns a 0. So it returns a 0. Okay. All these functions which you actually see, most of these functions, many of these functions have got definitions. So printf is a function which is inbuilt in C. Which is a function, but these functions have got definitions. What does the definitions mean? That if I pass in the values of this, basically of these parameters, how this function will actually work. Now, many of the functions you don't require to think of that how they are going to work. So the definition of how printf works is being defined in this file stdio.h. And stdio.h, this h means this is basically a header file. This is also a header file. This is also a header file. So the stdio.h is a header file which has all the definitions of all functions, which has something for which is being used for printing and taking in inputs. Stdio means the standard input and output header files. So include a header file, we require this keyword include. So we require this header file. This is a hash include. So this is the keyword. So I say that if I have to use this printf function, I must include this header file. If I do not include this header file, then since the definition of how this printf will work is not available to the system, it will not able to, this function not able to work. And not only that, when it tries to basically, when it compile, we'll come to see what is compilation. When it comes to compilation, you will see that it gives an error. Why it is an error? Because you're giving a function, you are basically writing a function for which the definition is not known to the system. So whenever you use a function, the definition of that function must be known beforehand to main. Similarly over here, if you actually see these lines, these things, my fgx, this function, this line number 13, gx and hz is working in f, right? But then if nobody knows is or what hz does, your f function f will not work. Similarly over here is the same thing. So the main function, which is the main function from which it starts, if it does not know the functions which you are going to give, what does those functions do, it will not able to work. And those functions are either self-defined or there are many standard functions which we'll be using later on. These functions are actually kept in your header files. Okay, please note the header files, how it has been written. It has been written between a greater than sign and a less than sign. So hash include, what it does. Now, you compile your program. Okay, that is, you convert, this is a programming language, which is basically what we say to be as C is basically what we say to be as a middle-level language. But this program that you have written is basically a high-level language. What is a high-level language? This is a language which you understand. So printf is a very common which is a function which actually, when you see it, it can tell, okay, what this function does. Now, once it has been converted to your once it is compiled and once it's been converted to the language, once it's been converted to a language in which your machine understands, what happens is that, and when you run this system, when you run this program, once you basically compile it, it forms your machine coded language. You have to run it. You have to tell the machine, you have to tell your system, please run my program. This program can also say to be as a process. So you can say, please run my program or run my process. Once you give an instruction for running the program, what happens is that this is the operating system, in my case, which is basically your Debian or the Ubuntu, it assigns a space in the memory, in the local memory, or a certain space where your program will be basically kept. This set of, now what has been done is basically it becomes a set of instructions. So your set of instructions will be kept on the memory. From this memory, each instruction will actually run through your processor and it will do the consecutive what you want it to do. Now, after the process has been completed, what it will do? It has to do something. It will end. The problem is that let's say something. You go to a restaurant. You order something. You have your meal, and you go out just like that. Okay, without even telling the waiter or without even basically giving the bill, you go out. What will happen? Can anybody tell me? Except for basically you being get beaten up, what will happen? Hello?
So we will be chased by the waiters or any officials of the restaurant until we complete the transaction.
Until you complete the process. So how will we know that the process has been completed? Until and unless you do not pay the bill. So when you are paying the bill, you actually leave the restaurant. So immediately after that, so your space becomes vacant. Immediately the waiter can actually assign somebody to that vacant seat again. So similarly, it happens the same way over here also. The process takes some space in the memory, and when it completed, you have to tell the system, look, I have completed my system, now I'm leaving. So if you want to assign that space to somebody else, please do it. So that is what my int main basically tells me. So my zero, when I'm returning a 0 to my operating system, it tells the operating system, look, I have finished my work. If you don't do it, if you do not do it, what happens? If you do not do it, no harm will be coming. But say after a certain finite time, the operating system itself will actually check whether the process has been completed or not. If it is not completed, then it's all right. But if it's completed, then it actually basically vacates the step. Now this is where the word something like what we see as good programming practices. So good programmer or the good programming practice is basically to tell the operating system, look, I have finished my work. Please, I'm leaving. If you want to allot that space, please do it. So that is what my return 0 will tell you. So the return is I'm returning some value from that function.
So if we don't if we don't write the return 0 statement, the space will be occupied after the program is complete.
Some steps. Now what the operating system does is that after some intervals, it starts basically checking which are the processes which has been completed or which has not been completed. Okay, it does some checking by itself. So if it does a check after some time, it's for the newer systems. For the older systems, it was not there. For the older systems, for the very initial systems, it was not there. But for the recent, for the modern systems, it does a check intermittently to know that which are the processes which has been completed or not. How will it understand whether the process has been completed or not? Keep any of the resources which is available to itself with the process. So let's say, for example, no CPU is being assigned to no CPU has been assigned to this process. It's something like let's say, for example, it's something like, say you pay the bill. Okay, in the restaurant you pay the bill and you sit. So after some time, what will happen? The waiter will come and tell you, okay, bhai, you have finished your meal, you have paid the bill, now leave. So it will come after some time. It will not basically immediately after paying the bill, the waiter won't throw you out. It will wait for some time. So the modern operating system works in the same way. It waits for some time, and if it sees that you are not ordering, so the waiter what will see that you are not ordering something, but you are occupying a space. Right. So the operating system will see that there is a process over here. It is not doing anything. It is not asking for any of its resources. It is not asking for the CPU. It is not asking for the printer. It's not even asking for the whatever any resources which it has. And if so, what will do? It will just throw it out. It will just clear out the table, or it will clear out the memory location.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
Here, like we are trying to get our output in characters, but you define that int is for integers and for characters there is char. So why are we inputting int and then we're trying to get a character output?
Come again.
Like here you wrote that int are for integers and char
for characters, right?
But now we are trying to get an output in the form of characters, like the hello world, they're characters. So shouldn't there be char? We should write character in place of an integer.
No. You're getting this. So this is a job. The printf, this line, it is a job which is done by main. So there are many jobs. So your function can also do some addition, subtraction, and then complete. Can it not do? So it can this function, what it does basically a sequence of steps. So it has got some jobs. Okay. After completing all those jobs, then it returns my integer value.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So why we are writing void in bracket main?
I'll come to that. I have not basically completed. Till here, any questions here?
Sir.
Yes.
So initially you wrote return exit success and then you changed it to
I did not.
zero.
Yes, it returns it. This is something I remember. I'll have to tell you.
So
Till here, any question? Till here, any question or not?
Excuse me, sir. I have a question.
Yes.
In return, we are writing 0. We are returning 0.
Yeah.
So, is there any method? Means we are just returning 0. If we give some other value, like return 1 or 2 or 3, then what happens?
Okay. One question. Okay, good. Okay. Any other question?
Does main always require data type? Like here we are using int. So in some other program, can we use some other data types?
Okay. We'll look another question. Fine enough. Any other question? I'll answer all your questions one by one. Any other question? Okay. I'll start from the last. Okay. So the main, there are 2 or 3 formats of main. Okay. This is very important. You must be knowing. You must know. Number 1. Yeah. These are the forms. These are the 4 forms or 5 forms in which your main can work. Okay. So void means it does not take in anything, nor does it return anything. So void is nothing, it's empty. The English meaning of void is basically empty. So it does not take in anything, it does not return anything. For the line number 12, for this function. So you see this over here, my main over here does not take in anything. So this is typically writing something like this. The function bed is something like this. It's something like this, writing something like this. Okay, algebraically it does not mean anything, but when I'm talking about in the terms of programming, it means that I'm not taking in anything. So my line number 12 states that the main function, it does not take in anything and it does not return anything. My second one, it states that it does not take anything, but it returns an integer. The third one is that it's totally blank, right? This actually implies that this is equivalent to this one, right? This is equivalent to this one. And the third, line number 16 and line number, yes.
Sir, can you repeat line number 14?
This line number 14, you see that is basically it does not take, but it does not have anything.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
This is equivalent to basically int main void.
So no input, but integer output.
Yeah.
Like by default, it will be integer.
By default, it will be integer.
Okay.
By default, it will be integer. Okay. And this is the int main. These two are basically, I'll get into these two things later on. So this main function takes in two sorts of parameter. It takes in an integer and takes in an array of pointers. What is the pointer we'll get into later on. Okay. And this one again, it does not return anything, but it takes in these two pointers. Okay. One, the main function, any function, if you do not return anything, by default, it returns a value of a successful value. That is, it returns a 0 or a 1. Okay, what do I mean by a 0 or a 1? Now, nothing is this over here. What does this 0 actually? Okay, so I'll come to this part later on. What does this 0 signify? Okay, third thing is that my main function returns only an integer. It does not return a character, nor does it return a float. Okay, main function, I'm talking of main, not any other function. I'm talking of main only. Okay, so my main, it returns an integer. Now, this 0, what does it indicate? This indicates that for this operating system, for this Ubuntu operating system, my 0 returns states that successfully completed my program, my process. Now I am leaving. I'm successfully completed my process. Now I am leaving. Unfortunately, there are many different operating systems. Now I can take the same program and run it in a different operating system. It might so happen that in a certain operating system, this 0 means a failure. This 0 means a failure. So to make it much more robust, what I do, I actually I give this keyword exit_success. I give this keyword. Please note, C programming is case sensitive, right? So this thing does not mean anything. So your keyword is return. So a capital A, so if I give something like capital A and small a, these two mean totally different. These two are not same. Please note this thing. Okay, so it's case sensitive. These are what we say as strongly typed programming languages. Okay, so whenever I actually take this program now, what will happen is that the definition of this exit underscore success is given in stdlib.h. This is what we say is the standard library.header file. Okay, now as my operating system changes, even if my value of my success value changes from a 0 or a 1, okay, 0 or a 1, that definition will be kept in stdlib.h only. So whenever I'm running this in a different operating system and compiling in a different operating system, the success value which is equivalent in that system which you are working in, what will happen is just exit underscore success just replaces it. The other one is the exit underscore failure. So you can either have an exit underscore success or you can have an exit underscore failure. So to make my program much more robust with respect to the operating system in which I'm working, this is necessary to give the exit underscore success or exit underscore failure. So since in this operating system which I already know, that my a successful return means a 0, so I had given a 0 at that time. What are the range of values for my integer for returning for a main? It is either a 0 or a 1, nothing else. It is either a 0 or a 1. Okay.
Okay.
Any question which I have not answered? Is there any question which I have not answered?
So can you please repeat the work of stdlib.h?
It's a standard library. The definition of this exit underscore success is being kept in this stdlib.h. It's a standard library.
Okay, sir.
I'll teach you basically how to basically go through programs, how to see in which programs are there, which commands are what it's for. I'll tell you all those things. It's being available in the using there is a manual also. So using a manual even in your examination is not wrong. It is technically right. Okay. So any other questions?
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, in place of int main parenthesis void, if we keep the parenthesis empty, then what will happen?
Come again.
Sir, in the line number 4, int main parenthesis void. So if we don't write the void, if we leave the parenthesis empty, then it would give error.
No, there will be no error. There will be no error.
Okay.
So technically you can say there is another command. This is also then right. Okay, fine enough. This is also right.
So this means actually we are taking input nothing, but we are getting an integer output.
Yeah. Okay. This thing is very important. Main, the output of main, even though it is an integer, it is not given to you. It is an output meant only for the operating system. It is not meant for you. It is only meant for your operating system only. Okay.
Means the output may not be an integer.
No. It has to be an integer. And it has to lie between 0 or 1. It is either a 0 or a 1. Okay. But it is an output which you cannot see. Actually, technically you can see it, but it will not be seen directly. Any other questions?
Sir, in place of exit success, if we put exit failure, what will it give?
It is again it's something like you go to the restaurant. Okay, so you eat your food. Okay, you pay the bill, and there is a review question. review for your chef comes to you and tells you, okay, bhai, is the food good or bad? So you either say it's a good or a bad, but then still after that you have to leave it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, for the operating system, the exit underscore failure success does not mean anything. So
Okay. Okay.
because what happens is that even if it's a failure or a success, you have to leave. Your space will be. But this is very important. Let's take for instance, this is a process. Okay, this process can be run by some other process also.
Okay.
Okay, so for that, say this is the process A, which is run by process B. So B runs process A. Okay, so this
Okay.
process A, this is being so the decision, so the whatever the failure or the success, that will depend on how your B basically program runs.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so if your process basically is depend if the this success of the failure, this output, it can be depend it can help some other process which is used. It's something like, let's take for example, let's take for example, you write a program to actually print something through your printer. Okay, now unfortunately it so happens your printer might not be you cannot basically access your printer. So what
Okay.
it does, it actually tries to print. Okay, another thing is that you are running you're printing something, in your printer, and then your printer stops in the there is a jam in your printer. So
Okay.
there must be a message. So you are an interface, you are a system which runs your printer. So the printer in between, while running, it jams, it sends a message back to you.
Yes.
You are the main process,
Yes.
right? Because the printer process is totally different, you are the different process.
Yeah.
So based on that output, based on that, based on the message or the output which your printer gives you, you basically take another action.
Yes.
Okay, so that is where your actually integer, this int main becomes very, very important actually.
Okay, sir.
Any other question?
Sir, you told that int main means we are taking input nothing. Sir, but last program which you taught us means we are assigning some values to the variable. So that's why that case we are taking some input, sir. So input nothing means what here then?
No, the main does not take in any inputs.
But inside we are
You can
assigning some values to the variable.
look. That is the basically okay. I can have my self-defined functions also. I can define different functions of my own. I'll come to that later on. In the later classes, you'll see that how we define your own functions. So when you define your own functions, then you can give your input. But this is basically your this is how your main has been defined. This is, you cannot go out of these rules. Main takes either something void, or it does not, it takes in something, right, or it does not take in anything. That is all. But this is basically the closure of main. Either takes in something or it doesn't take in something. So what it can again take, it can only take these stuffs only. It can only take these stuffs only. So the int argc, character pointer array of character pointers, argv. What is the pointer? Forget about it. So just think of it that this is basically only what the main can take. You cannot basically take it. It cannot take in a float. It cannot take in a character. You cannot take in. You cannot take in only a single character. No, it cannot. Sorry, it's out of the question. That is how your main has been defined. It's a standard procedure. It's a standardization. It's a standardization because this is a program. This is a function through which your process starts. Okay.
Okay.
Any other question over here? Any other question?
No, sir. not from me.
Means when we are giving the input, means we are assigning some values to the variable. We will write that int main bracket. Inside we will not write anything. Means void we will not write then.
No. This is the standard. When a void means there is nothing. The main does not. So basically, line number 17. But either you can take in line number 17. Sorry. Either you can use this function line of line number 17 or 18, or you can use line number 12 or 13. Okay. There is nothing else you can do.
Okay, sir.
But either you use line number 17 or 18, or you use line number these three lines. So that is line number 12, 13, 14, or 16 or 17. There is no other way out. So this thing does not work. So if I have something like void main, void main float x, this does not work. It's not going to. It's grammatically wrong. So the grammar is there. Yes, you can say this is the grammar. So this is the grammar. Okay, it's a grammar something like the first letter of your character, the first letter of a sentence starts with a capital letter. That is what your grammar is. Okay, your first letter of a sentence does not start with a small letter. Right?
So it means that we can write like this, that int main void we write, then we go to the next line. We are taking another integer say a and we are assigning some variable value to a. So that we can do, sir. Inside
Yeah, that's all right. Those things I'll come to later on. Obviously, technically, yes, you're right.
So that is all right then.
Yeah, that is all right. That is all
okay, sir. Okay.
But this line, it has got no other alternatives. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. All your commands which you actually write, they will be between two curly braces. Please note. So two curly braces it should run. All lines, all commands must end with a semicolon. So all commands in a function, whether it is a self-defined function or whether it is a defined function, it always is given within braces. Okay? The parameters are given within first brackets, that is your round brackets. Okay? And all commands end with a semicolon. All your C programs must end with .c. All your C programs must end with the extension of .c. This .c is what we say is an extension. This helps the compile, this helps the system to identify, this extension helps you to identify what sort of file it is. So if your file is a document, it might end with a docx. If your file is a text file, it ends with a .txt, .txt. So your extension is in identification what sort of file it is. A PDF file ends with a .pdf. Okay? So ls these are commands which you see, these are simple commands which is available for Linux. Okay, so if you are not interested in doing it, I won't mind, that is all right. So but then I advise that you can basically have a look at there are many commands, basic commands of working with Linux. Okay. If you are using a Linux system. Okay. So my program is basically first.c. I require to compile it. Okay. GCC is a command which compiles my program. Okay, so let's see. My first had something like this. Okay, let's see. So if you enter, something is going to happen. Okay, you see, now these things are very important. If there are errors, please read your errors. What the errors give you an indication of what are the syntax errors. Since this is a language, right, it follows a grammar. Since it follows a grammar, there will be errors in your grammar. So whenever there is an error in a grammar, those what we say to be as syntax errors. Those are what we say to be a syntax error. You see, in our first line number, it says that line number 5, column number 9, there is a missing terminating this thing. So my program should actually end with a this thing. So all characters must have must be enclosed within 2 quotes. So double quote and end double quote. Okay, so again I save it, again I compile it. So if there is no error, GCC will not give you anything, it's been done. Okay, now see, let's see. You see this a dot out, this is my executable file. This is the executable file which I'll actually run to make it as a process. See, this is their output. So what my program was doing, it was just printing a hello world. Any questions? Okay. Let's see this thing. What is happening is basically it's actually there is it actually once it completes, it's basically printing the data over here only, right? So let's change it a little bit. /n. The /n indicates to be a new line. /n indicates to be as a new line. Okay. Till here, any questions? Now, if there are any questions, yes.
Sir, what is the function of a dot out in the first line?
A dot out is basically it is a machine. It is the that is the set of instructions. What GCC does is basically something like this. It actually just it checks for the grammar and it converts that these high definition languages, these known definition, these high definition into a language which the operating system can understand, which the machine can understand. So it creates a new file. It creates a new file. This file is what we say to be as an executable file, right? As in a Windows, you see all these .exes. You have seen all these .exes. How many of you have not seen any .exes? I'm talking of any student who does not have any. But I believe that all of you. Okay, just one question: how many of you does not have a computer at home? Debarko, you do not have any computer at home. Shahil, you do not have any computer. Okay, Sauratijaya, Orithro. So you do not have. So you three. Anybody else? Okay. So my question is that how will you actually be doing your assignments? You'll be having a labs. Janto, how will you do it? How do you plan to do it? Hello?
I cannot understand, sir. How
Huh?
can I?
Yes.
How can I doing my assignment?
So you must be, you should be doing assignments, na? You will be starting off with labs.
Yes, sir.
So how will you do it? Cyber cafe, okay. Okay, for all of you who do not have machines, okay, that is one of the reasons I have actually basically telling you all these compilers. So you see, let's take for an online GDP, right? If you for this thing, you can actually basically, let's take for you can run a program over here. You can actually basically just click on this run, and it's going to give you some. So it, you see, it's compiling something, and then it gives you something like this. You see, the program has exit code 0. That means it means that the program which you have done after the complete process has been completed, it actually basically gives you a output is 0. So that is what is gone. So let's say if I actually give something like this, let's see what happens over here. H, and I give exit underscore success. Okay, and I run it. Let's see what happens over here. You see, for this system, for the system in which they are actually online GDP is working, right? The success value is itself 0. So that is what you see, that the program has exited, is finished with the exit 0. And we just press enter in there. So you can use these sorts of you can use these interfaces for actually running your programs. So if you have got even a mobile with you, so you can even run your programs over here also. Okay. So I believe that not having a machine right now will not be a justified thing. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Sahil? Champriti? So if you do not have any machines, I advise you to basically use these stuffs. This is the link I have already shared in your, there are some links which I have actually shared in your chats. Okay. So out of all these things, you can, this is basically a list of all the online compilers which you have got. That is a Codebo.io, Piazzo, then OneDocs, Audio. You can actually have a look at these things. So whichever you feel very Geek for Geeks has also got one. Tutorials Point, this one also has got one. So Geek for Geeks is something maybe looks like something like this. Yeah, you can, it has got something like this. Okay, so you can see there are many other programming languages which we have got over here also in the language. In the future, if you do not even have a machine, so even if you do not have a machine, just look, you have to have a machine with basically a browser and a you should be having a browser and what we say, you should be having a browser internet connection. That is all what we require. So any questions about not being able to do any machine commands on any program? Okay, so if you do not even buy what I'm telling you is basically you require basically, if you even if you have got a mobile, you can actually also do this thing. Yes, typing will be a little bit tough, but then it's all right. Once you get a hang of it, you can always do it. Okay, till here any question? So let's see, I'll just have a look. So your course will be basically will be having basically a structure of the C program. So this is basically your structure of your C program. So your structure of your base structure of your C program is basically int main void within basis, and within everything you will be writing all your codes. We'll be talking with variables and types, and we'll talking of prints, and then we'll have control structure with if then while. We'll working with loops, we'll be working with array structures, and then after that, if we actually find some time, we'll be working with the pointers also. Okay, so I'll be moving a little bit very fast enough, right? So these are the definitions. You can actually see the structure of a C program. Any question till here? Any question till here?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, what is the significance of the slash n after hello world?
Slash n means a new line. It indicates a new line. I'll just give you an example. I'll show you what happens if I do not. So this is basically with a slash n, right? If I do not give a slash n, then see what happens. The best thing about program is that, look, you won't be able to do anything. I mean, you won't be able to do any harm with the knowledge which you will be having. But then the best thing is you can basically check it out what happens with one thing, remove one thing and you do not remove one thing. See, now this is with the not slash n. So see, this is the output, which is the difference. So since there is a new line, there is no new line, this thing in this program of mine, present program of mine, you see that it actually basically just prints my prompt immediately after my new hello world. So that is the difference. That is the difference. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so let's take a new program. I'll take a very simple program now. I'll just type of this thing. So everybody can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So int main. As I was saying, there is no harm if you do not give it, but then there is something called good programming practices. So let's say that I want to add two numbers. Okay, so I'll just add two numbers. I'll take two integers, right? So, add two numbers. Then what I require to do is basically I have to take variables now. Okay, so I have to take two variables. So int, say I take a, comma b. So within each instruction there is an ending of a semicolon. So I assign a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2. Now I give c, so the result. B. Now I want to basically return success. I want to print it, right? So I require something like printing, printf. Okay. Okay, let's see. I believe that anybody has any problems with my line number 5 to 8. It is something, if you remember, we were working with what do you say, your flowcharts and your algorithm. That is what you had actually done. So the only difference is that I have made these variables to be of specific data types only. So I'm stating that my variables will be right now will be integer types. So I'll be having three variables. Two variables will be taking for the input, right? Assigning the two numbers, and there will be another variable which will have the result, that is result a plus a, then result, in which I'll be assigning the result is basically of a plus b. Now I want to print it. So the printing, the process, if you remember your last program, if you remember your last program.
So why you are using the D1
I'll
dot D what?
I'll come to that. So if you remember your last program, what we had done was basically all my printf statements, whatever characters I have to print, I have to print it within my quotes, okay, double quotes. So the same thing I have done over here. So you see, I have this basically printing it in within double quotes. There's only slight one difference is that I have taken so this printf was taking in the parameters only. What was the parameters over here? So printf, since printf is a function, so all functions will be taking parameters, right? Printf takes in a function parameters of characters. So over here, there is a set of parameters which is the characters. But over here, you see, if you see this program, there's a slight difference. It takes in a string parameters, comma, plus the another variable. Now, this variable for my case is the result which I want to print it. So I want to state that this result being an integer data type, to allow it to be printed in the screen, I have to basically state it as, look, this is the print, this is an integer type which I'm going to print, and to indicate that I have to basically print it as a %d. So the %d indicates this place will be replaced with an integer value which presently is basically result. Okay.
So instead of D we can write any character.
No,
or D
for
is
integers,
defined.
okay, it is defined. For integers is sorry. For integers to print, it is basically %d. For float is %f. For char is %c. There are some more, because since you have basically we have discussed only these three data types. So to print any of these three data types, so the consecutively is for int. So this is for int. This is for float, and this is for char.
So if we want to print more than one integer, then we have.
I'll come to that. So till here, any question over here? Till here, any question? So so to print an integer, I have to require basically %d. So what happens is when I'm trying to print, when it compiles, what it does is basically it actually basically replaces this value, which is an integer, into. Okay, so let's see what happens. So I'll just give a new line over here. See. So this is the output. So the value of the integer, where the result is basically is being replaced with, value is being replaced with over here. Now, as somebody was saying that if you want to basically take multiple numbers, so let's take for the number a equals to %d, b equals to %d, is percentage d. Now I require basically there are 3 values which has to be replaced, and it has to be replaced one at a time. So it will be a comma b comma c. So as many, please note, as many number of variables which has to be replaced, that many arguments it should be over here. So these are 3. I will be having 3. Okay. So let's see if I actually compile this thing, what will happen. Any question here?
Sir?
Yes.
What if we write int a and int b in place of void with the main function?
No, I told you in the beginning only, you do not have any other option. You do not have any option. The way of basically writing mint are only in these ways. You don't have any other alternatives.
Okay.
Okay, you don't have any other alternatives. These are the ways only you can write your basically main function. There is no other alternative. You cannot take in any other parameters.
Okay.
Okay.
So can we compute the sum inside the printf
Yes, you can
string
do
like?
it. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it.
Okay, sir.
So what you are actually saying is something like this. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let's see what happens. Okay, so with you can see with each change I am compiling it again. Okay. Any question? Anybody who has any question? Please speak. If you write any questions in a chat, I cannot understand. I'm not seeing any chats right now.
Sir,
yes.
We took result as one of the variables, just like a and b. But while printing our result, we wrote a, b, and result. Then again we replaced result with a plus b.
Yeah.
But we are getting the same result. So why is that? Like,
What happens is that while this function is being, now this is a parameter, now this part is also again a function, right? It's an addition function. So what it does, it actually computes that addition, it does that computation, and then it keeps that result over there, and then it replaces it. So if you actually see, this was something like this. Oh, I believe that I've actually basically something like something what we had done. Remember this thing: A is equal to hx, then b is equal to gz, then y is equal to what we had done. Y is equal to f of right? Sorry. Then we had what we had done was basically y is equal to a comma b. Right? Now what I had actually said that this line number 5 is equivalent to line number 4, line number 3.
Yes, sir.
Right? Remember?
Yes,
that is
sir.
what. Huh?
Yes,
so
sir. Then
this is the thing what we have done over here.
Then, sir, it's not necessary to assign a variable for our result. We can directly write the function that we need to perform.
Yes.
Okay.
If you do not require the look, let's take for example, if I require the result later on somewhere else, so it's not a good idea to always basically do the computation. So that takes some memory. So I can keep it in a variable. So that saves me some time for my computation. Because when I'm doing something over here, right? So let's take, for example, if I do something like this. Um, um, I can do something like this, a plus b divided by 2. This thing is the same thing, and this is also the same thing. Right, these two are the same thing. But then what is happening, you can see with, like, if I actually keep this whole code like this, you can see that a plus b, the computation of a plus b is being done twice, while for printing and while for also calculating my average. Right, so it's not a good idea. So it is best that basically for this thing, when I'm requiring this result maybe later on, so it is always a good thing that basically I can keep it in a variable, because that can be used, I can use it later on always. But if it's only for a one-time purpose, then this line number 9 is all right. If it's for a one-time purpose, then line number 9 is all right. But if you want to basically use this result more often later on, right? So it's not going to work. So it's not a good idea actually. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but it's not a good idea.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any question here? Any question? So the for printing my, okay, let's see what happens if I actually give a print percentage %f. Let's see. So see, if I give a percentage %f, while I am even trying to print a basically a integer, a warning will come up. See, this is a warning. This is not an error. A warning, when you give a warning, it is all right, because the program runs. But there are some specific warnings. If you actually, if you do not avoid these warnings, what happens is that for some cases, for some statement, for some variables, it might work, but in the long run, your program can have some errors. Your programs might have some errors. What these sorts of errors can actually come to, tell you when you will be studying your basically numerical methods. Why we study numerical methods? So that is also important with this programming concept also. Okay, so since it is a warning, our executable file has been. If it's a error, your executable file will not be created. But if a warning, your executable file will be created. So I can actually run this thing, see what happens right now. Yeah. See, no data has been printed. Something has been basically printed, but the result has not been given. The result has not been given. So it is very important that you basically give a right one. Okay. Any questions still here? Okay, since we do not have any question, yes.
Sir.
Sir, you took the example of average to explain why we assigned result. I tried to do that on my own, but it was not giving any useful or valid result.
Yeah,
so is it because we took integer as an input?
Yeah. Your average
So we
will
need
be
to change that for getting
your
decimal.
average will then be a float. But then there are also many things which to be done. I'll get back to you in the second one. I'll take this problem again in the next class. I'll take up this case.
Sir, I have
Yes.
a doubt.
Yes.
Sir, in that last line, when you change that result to percentage %f,
Yeah.
shouldn't the output have been like 3.000?
It depends on the compiler again, which I'll tell you, this depends on the compiler and your operating system.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
It all depends on your compiler and operating system. It totally depends. It very much, it is not independent, right? So, okay, just for information sake, I'll show you something. Man is basically the manual. So if I actually see the manual of GCC, you'll see it's a Project C and a C++ compiler. You can have a look at basically, if you actually go through the, if you can find some net data on your net also. But I'll want to show you something over here, which is very important. See, there are machine dependent options. You can see something like this. So there is the architecture 64-bit. There is a FFNE, there is a ARC, there is a ARM processors also, there is a AVR processors also. So I can actually generate codes, but I can basically compile my system in such a way that I can basically compile it with respect to for some target. When I can write some codes over here in my own machine, and I can compile my system, my codes with respect to, let's take from ARM options, for ARM processors, right? So ARM processors are specifically something different than your Intel processors which we are having, right? Now if I want to run those ARM processors in my system, it will not work. So your operating system, your processor is very, very important in which how you're going to do. Another thing is that you will see, I will show you another thing. You see, there are so many operating, these are so many varied processors or architectures, what we actually say. So Intel is based on Intel architecture. So Intel 64, Intel Core i3 is actually having a Intel architecture. So what all these terms you will be learning in your whole syllabus, on your whole course, electronics course. But then what I want to actually show you is something like this. I'll advise you to basically actually have a look at these many things. You can learn a lot. Not only that, you can actually debug your system also. Yeah. So options for controlling a C dialect. This is very important. I can have a standard. This is in C mode. So if I give a C90, so this is equivalent to C98. So the ANSI is basically whatever you learn, the whatever courses, whatever things, what you actually see over here. So these things, what you actually see, these sorts of writing of codes is basically what we say to be as ANSI C. Right. So this is an ANSI format. Now, presently we can also have something like these are the standard values for your standards. So that is the C90, which is the ANSI. This is C89. Then the C99, which is the most present one. The C99 is the most present one. With C99, you can do a lot of, there are many options which you can have. So let's take, for example, in a C99, I could have done something like this. This is very much allowed in your C99. So you can see I'm in the ANSI. What I was doing basically, all the variables you had to basically initialize in the beginning of your function. But when I'm working with ANSI, when I'm C99 or the present version C99, you can assign or you can basically create variables in between also. When you can basically declare, rather this is what we say as declaring. So I can declare variables in between of my codes also. This is very much there. So ANSI, there is a lot of difference between coding styles of ANSI and basically code C99. So if you can have a look of what are the advantages of C99. You can see, actually have a look that what happens if you want to work with C99. So so in the ANSI mode, these turns of certain features that are incompatible with ISO C90. So such as the ASM and the type of count, then there are predefined macros which you cannot do it. Then for the C compiler disables the C++ styles. Okay, that is for the inline. So this one is cannot work. So for comments, I forgot this one thing. So there was something called comments. So this is commenting, declaring of variables. So there are two sorts of comments, right? One is these two backslashes, right? And the other one is these are group comments. These comments means that whatever is given for this thing, whatever is this, it will not be basically considered for compilation. These are actually helpful for writing our notes, writing for our notes in our programs, in between notes. So for a normal C90, that is the ANSI mode, you see that this is in this command, this / is not allowed. So if I write a basically C90, if I declare it with the this thing, HDC90, okay, so this will not work. So if I have something like, let's say for example, GCC std equals to minus ANSI second dot c, sorry, you see there is an error which is coming. Okay, this is an error which is coming. So this is a C++ that are not allowed in C90. Whereas if I give a only normal GCC, which actually works with the standard is basically C99. So if we do this, then it compiles. So this is a huge difference between ANSIs and the standards which you actually have. So the normal, if you actually see the, there are many books by the name of ANSI C only. So like there is a book by the name of Balaguru Swami. The book starts with ANSI C. So for ANSI C, then these are basically the STD will be basically STD. Then this thing will be working. Okay, so you can actually have a look. These are all the different versions. These are all the different versions which is available to you. Okay. Any question?
No, sir.
Shukanto, what is your operating system? Shukanto, what is your operating system? GCC is only available in your Unix system. For Unix only GCC is available. If you do not have GCC, then you can use these. We can basically go through the searching of what we were saying. What I was saying as this thing. GCC for Windows. If you actually search, we can actually have a look at these packages, the segment packages. You can download it and basically write. Okay. So that will give you a basically this thing.
Sir, if I use min.gw in code blocks, would it be any
Yeah, it
problem?
will work. It will work. It will work. You have to just basically go for the settings, do some settings out.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Anybody from, okay, now my question is, anybody from non-computer science who doesn't have any sort of a coding ideas, anybody has had any doubts for this today's class? My advice is basically you actually have when you use these online systems, it will help you out. So the GDB is one. I have sent all these links. These are available all in the chats. These are all there in the chats. You can see these are the chats, which is the last one is this one, the online GDB. This is the last one which is there. Okay. Write codes. The objective will be writing now is basically write codes. I'll give you some assignments. Maybe by today or by tomorrow, I'll give you some assignments. You can write some very simple codes. I'll help. Then you can work it out.
Sir, in a Windows environment, how will I create a .c file?
You can use a normal text pad. So save as .c.
Sir, I did that and it shows the same error like GCC command not found. I installed that.
GCC is which one? GCC is it's a Windows.
Yeah.
So for that we have to basically take that, write that path of that GCC which is available in your environment variables. In the properties mode, I believe so there is something called environment. Over there you have to basically give it in the path. Then only you can basically write it.
Okay,
then
sir.
only your GCC will work.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? By the way, everybody was able to access these things, the files which we have shared.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes,
Sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In the next few days, I might basically change again this link which I'm sharing. Okay, I'm still basically in the mode of learning of this classroom interface to help you to learn, to help you to know better. But just give me some time. Maybe there is another link which is available, so I'll just check it out. Okay. So the next few days, maybe another link will come up. Okay. Any other questions now then?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Then we can leave.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, I had a question that doesn't relate to our class that we had up till now.
Okay.
Sir, do compilers make any difference? Like we used to learn C in our school, right?
Yes. Compilers make a huge difference. Compilers make it look. What happened is that the basics of C has got a grammar, right? Now, whenever each of the basic checking of the syntax has not been changed, but let's take for a Microsoft Visual Studio, right? Microsoft, they have done some tweaks with their system, with the grammar. They have done some tweaks. Then the Turbo C, they have also done some tweaks. Okay, so that is why some compilers will not work in the same way in which you are thinking about. But the basics, the basics of programming which will be working, that you can basically, that will work always. It's a very advanced in that this thing will actually not work. But yes, compilers do make a difference. Compilers do make a difference.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, out of the 4 books which you have shared in the drive, like for basics for what you have taught, which one we should like for reference purpose we should study now?
Okay. If you are basically if you are a starter, if you do not have any knowledge about programming,
No, I have a little knowledge on Java and
Java I won't say, but we are talking about C. Let's see what are the ones which you actually have. Which are the ones which are actually suggested? Okay, the books are Paul and Kelly, pointers. Okay, the last book that is understanding and using of pointers, I would prefer not to go for that right now. It is for a much later stage. Okay, the C programming, that is the second edition which you actually see, that is a Cunningham Ritchie, that is the C programming. This second edition, this book is basically written by the person who actually created C, Cunningham Ritchie. Okay, it's written by these 2 persons only. Now, if you have some knowledge about C, then you can go for this book. This book is a very thin book, but the knowledge which is, if you read very intricately, then you will have a lot of knowledge. Okay. And for these, either you can basically either go to any of these 2 books. Paul and Kelly, the advantage of working with Paul and Kelly is basically it actually, given a program, it dissects each and every program line by line. Okay, whereas this book, The Complete Reflection by Herbert Shield, it does not give you, but these two books are very good. This is obviously the master of everything of these two, any book, but then for starters, you can choose any one of these two books.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. And anybody else? Okay, then we'll take a leave. Okay. Chalo, okay, good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.